So I'm Mohammed Farshori. My day job is I'm Director of Community Engagement at AT&T. And I've been with AT&T 14 years. I started as a call center sales rep and worked for 14 years, worked in 10 different organizations. And because of my work with ERGs and BRGs and community engagement and some of the citizenship sustainability work that I was part of, I was lucky to get this opportunity.
Lucky? That's not luck. That's where preparation meets opportunity, and this is a great case study of that.
So, kind of starting at the entry-level job and then ending up as a director of community engagement for a company like AT&T.
Big company.
Big company.
And this is a global role.
Yes, it is. So that's my day job as a director of community engagement, involved in making sure that as individual employees, as groups, and as business units have the opportunities to engage their employees, to make sure there are enough opportunities for us to, put that halo on our head when we are out there in the community, right? That's what my role is. And but outside that, I was also the national president, past president of the Organization of Asian Indians at AT&T, which is a large group of close to 6,500 members. And then I was also involved. I'm also an advisor to multiple other ERGs and employee networks. And then, in the community, I'm past president of India Association of North Texas. I'm involved with multiple Asian nonprofits in the North Texas area. So, and just recently I've joined as a board of advisor to the Girl Up, United Nations Foundation Girl Up board as an advisor. And it's just been an amazing journey. I mean, my passion is my job. I mean, I can't be more thankful than that. It's just been an amazing journey. And love this place. Got to meet some like-minded people. One of the most engaged folks all across the globe are in this room. So this is my third time attending the Asia Society DLF, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. Great role model in our community. Thank you, Mohammed.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sharmila Fowler, and I am Director of D&I, Diversity Inclusion, Strategic Alignment within our Global Diversity Inclusion Strategic or Community Engagement Group within McDonald's. So it is also a global role. We are a small group of 5 people with an assistant. So, wanted to let you know that that's why we wear multiple hats. While my role is the strategic alignment, I've also gone through Train the Trainer for our unconscious bias training, which we are delivering to our system. I work a lot with our employee business networks, that's our term EBNs, and especially with trying to figure out what strategies, and how to align with what the organization is doing. And then I do a lot in terms of community outreach, especially with the Asian organizations and with women organizations. So that's it's such a passion for me. I've been at McDonald's now 3 years. I came into a U.S. marketing role where I was leading our Asian American marketing efforts. So that was when I read that job description, I was like, this is me. I just read it. I was like, oh my God, I have to do this. And I got it. It was wonderful. And as we were restructuring sort of the multicultural setup within U.S. marketing, I had this opportunity to come into diversity and inclusion. And to me, I feel that diversity and inclusion is sort of this umbrella piece where, the diversity marketing is one aspect of it. Then there's the employees. Then there's our owner-operators. There's our suppliers, and then there's our community partners. So all of that, we try to look at everything holistically, and I just sort of named the stakeholders that we really play to within our group. So we are part of the global people function, but again, we look in a more holistic manner at diversity and inclusion. My background is multicultural marketing, and I've been in this area for so long. If I say how long, then you'll know how old I am.
Right? Notice you're not going to quote years here,
I am not saying years, but I've seen it evolve. For many years, I was on the board for the Asian American Advertising Federation. I'm currently on the the Asian External Advisory Council for Nielsen, and on the board of Ascend. So I'm involved in the community, and then also in terms of a lot of the Asian organizations that we support.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So
Wonderful.
Which
gives you a
here.
very broad view of
Yes.
this space here. Let me remind you of the program that we're going to experience together here. It's about business resource groups, but a very unique and focused aspect for our time together. And that is about discovering the alliances and opportunities created when BRGs, ERGs, when we come together with our counterparts across the internal organization, maybe even commenting on outside the organization. Learn about the problem solving that is possible when collaboration occurs among internal BRGs and how these initiatives contribute to the company's bottom line while building leadership skills and competencies. So that's the focus of our conversation today.
So AT&T has been there for a while, right? 140 years history. And when I say 140 years, it's, the history of AT&T's innovation is a story of people from all backgrounds just coming together to connect people with their world. And so because we've been there for so long, we also are one of the few companies that have had ERGs and BRGs way back before it was even cool to have ERGs.
How long has it been?
Our oldest ERG will be celebrating 50 years next year.
50?
50.
Really?
Yes, the network, the African American ERG, is going to be celebrating 50 years next year.
Okay, that's
formed in
long.
1969. But even before that, a year before the first ERG was formed, we had the first time AT&T launched the supplier diversity for 1968. Our Inspiration ERG is celebrating 40 years this year. Mm-hmm. And then we have Organization of Asian Indians at AT&T. We have FACES, which is focused on the Filipino Americans Association, and then we have two employee network BRGs that are based in Hong Kong, China, which is the AT&T and the Asian Pacific Women Organization. And then we have the Pulse India, which is our employee network in India.
In India?
Yeah, and they both were formed in 2015, 2016.
How many total employees at AT&T?
260K plus, and overall,
260,000.
our membership base for ERGs and ENs combined is 133,000.
Wow, I can almost understand why they have so many of ththese ERGs, because
24 total. If you combine the ERGs and employee networks, we have around 24 total. So starting to the point of AT&T's history, we look beyond just the basics of when you say diversity, people talk about race, gender, all that. But
age,
we're looking,
those are
with the basic things. But
groups.
we look at diversity from very different angles. So you can literally put 5 white male on a panel, and we are not going to look at them as 5 white male, but beyond that could be veteran, could be a millennial, could be a baby boomer, disability.
Yeah.
LGBT. That's how we are programmed to look at things, right? That's from a diversity angle, because. Even within millennials, were you raised in Manhattan versus some rural town in Arkansas?
Yeah.
Because your life experiences shape your personalities and how you look at things, right? So it's very important that we don't pigeonhole people into those little blocks. As Muhammad is not just a Muslim who's Indian, right? What else, right?
You are much more complex than that.
Yes.
Yeah. Remember our CDO of Uber, and she talked about the complexity of the individual. We're gonna fight just oversimplifying.
Exactly, and the work experience is one of the biggest things that we ignore sometimes when we're looking at diversity, right? In my 14 years, I've worked in 10 different roles.
Oh my!
I've done sales, customer experience. I've done product marketing. I've done project management. I've done M&Ps. So and then 3 of my jobs were startups. So, if people look at that, then, forget all the other pieces. Like, look at because lateral moves are in. People prefer people who are moving around, right? So we're looking at those things. And that has helped us. And then on top of this, I highly recommend everyone to please go listen to our CEO's video, which was recorded by an employee at one of our ERG conference, which is From Tolerance to Understanding. That was an amazing video, and if you have not seen it,
I've not.
It's
on YouTube.
Yes.
What's a good search word?
CEO Randall Stevenson's speech, and basically it was a speech related to Black Lives Matter.
Okay.
Amazing speech, and that kind of triggered, because he basically told us to, stop tolerating each other. Anyone can tolerate. Go and understand.
Yeah, I actually don't like that word. Think about the last time you were being tolerated.
Yeah.
Not good, right?
And get comfortable to have uncomfortable conversations. And we have started that, right? So that has been very helpful. I have hosted a few sessions with groups, and every time people cry. It's just everyone is crying because people are sharing experiences they've never talked about at work. So I kind of walked you guys through this piece of our history. 1968, the first supplier diversity team was found, and then 2008 is when we first created the Chief Diversity Officer position, even though we had been focused on diversity since the company was founded. But it's very intentional. We have to be intentional. We have to make sure we create enough platforms for our employees to feel they can bring their authentic self to work, right? And I have so many stories of, when I joined, I was looking at myself as, because of our life experiences, talking to people, I was struggling to bring my authentic self to work because in my mind, I was a Muslim living in a post 9/11 America. I was trying to not hide, but not really talk about what my background is. If I'm fasting, I wouldn't tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I would not bring Indian food to work because I don't want to start a conversation. People are like, what is that? Smells weird, right? So it was just all in my mind, and I kind of went.
Well, it wasn't in your mind. It was probably very real also.
And then I joined Women of AT&T, and I was the only man in one of the mentoring sessions, and some of my peers, they started talking about, the inequality, pay inequality, and I'm thinking, you can have this kind of conversation at work? What the heck? And that was the starting. So I'm a product of Women of AT&T. I'm a male ally because of that, because I tell people, I said, I would have not even known that you can bring your whole self to work without Women of AT&T.
You don't have to hide all the time.
So ERGs are very important. I personally am a great example of, Women of AT&T kind of shaped my career. And then I helped join the Oasis and helped kind of launch the Dallas chapter, and then, rest is history. So good. And then, as I mentioned, we have 12 employee resource groups. We have 13 employee networks. Out of the 12 employee resource group, we have 3 that are focused on Asian Americans.
Remind us again the difference between the ERG and the network.
So the employee networks are more like BRGs.
Okay.
They're focused more on professional growth, and they're not nonprofits.
Okay.
Our ERGs at AT&T are 501c3s. And employee networks are mainly focused on, they could be project management focused employee networks. The AT&T Women of Business is part of our communications group. So it's more focused on professional growth, mentoring opportunities. ERGs are more towards the diversity piece, and they have a lot of freedom to do things because they're 501c3s.
Okay. Interesting structure.
Yeah, and then as you can see, in 2017, so our ERGs and employee networks had volunteered over 412,000 hours. That's, and ERGs are open to all US-based employees, but ENs are also international.
Okay.
Our ERGs are not international.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but
very inclusive approach, as you can tell. Yeah.
And then, here I kind of mentioned this a little bit. In 2015, we were 18 ERGs and ENs combined. And as you can see, since last year, we're at 24. And our volunteer hours continue to grow, our memberships continue to grow. And and the credit goes to our sponsors and advisors. Mm-hmm. Every ERG, every employee network is backed by business unit leaders, which is the most important thing. Because that's how it starts. A lot of WIFM behind ERGs is, why should I join?
Now, these are senior leaders.
These are very senior leaders. These are senior vice presidents, these are presidents, these are VPs, and they're managing big budgets, and they give time.
And they don't necessarily belong in
to the demo.
that group. So it could be a white senior executive that is advising the Oasis group.
Exactly.
Okay.
I mean, and we have a lot of examples like that. In fact, one of our senior VP, Mike Coffey, is the one who helped launch Pulse India in India, right? So it's
and he's U.S. based.
U.S. based, white male, right? I mean, so it's the experiences, right? Because he was an advisor to Inspiration and Oasis, so he had the experience of working with that employee workforce, and when he took over a business unit which has like 2,000 plus employees in India, he said we got to do something for engagement here.
Yeah.
So
let me make a point. If I just want to underscore that. When senior leaders, if you ever have the opportunity where senior leaders are saying, how can I be more inclusion-minded? How can I access and be a part of the diversity conversation? Give them a role like that. Give them a role like that. Go ahead.
And communities and collaboration. I mean, we have AT&T's like really big philanthropy.
Super big.
And as you can see, we are committed to a $400 million towards our AT&T Aspire program.
What's
AT&T Aspire is our education initiative and investing in the skill sets of STEM skill sets of students in the U.S. and all across, mainly focused in the U.S.
Okay.
And you know so a lot of programs that AT&T does with schools and in innovation and making sure the kids understand mobile apps, they understand technology, arts. So it's a huge focus from AT&T's point. And as you can see, just last year, and on top of that, just last year, the AT&T corporate funding was $139 million towards the community.
That's a lot of money.
Yep.
That's a lot of cell phone bills being paid to fund that.
It is because we believe that we have a huge responsibility toward the society, and I'm part of the citizenship sustainability team, and we have a huge responsibility towards the environment too. So we're doing a lot of work. I mean, if you come here by next year, you'll see the changes just in our headquarters location. We're turning zero waste,
Wow.
And our ERGs are kind of be leading that efforts. So and I mentioned that the employee groups volunteer hours were 383,000 in 2016. This is the old number, but it's way over that, 400 plus if you include the employee networks.
So, for example, the Aspire program, much of your workforce for that, your volunteer workforce, is coming from the ERGs and the networks, are they?
So the employee networks and ERGs play a huge role in helping us meet that goal, because we don't want to be just a company that signs checks. How do you engage? Like if we are donating something to, let's say, Khan Academy, or we're doing something to some major school or CIS in Dallas, the follow-up is, okay, now that we have funded some event, who's going to go mentor these students? Who's going to bring these students to AT&T headquarters or retail store, or which ERG is going to host mobile app workshops? Okay. So there's a lot of engagement opportunities there too.
Good.
And every voice matters. Every voice matters. And that's what we're trying to tell millennials, baby boomers, Gen X, Gen Z. 2% of our employee workforce today is Gen Z.
What is this this tagline? Is this something?
This is our.
How long has it been?
Our D&I team. This is something that is the first thing our employees hear when they join AT&T.
How long have you used that tagline?
I mean, since I would say 2008.
Okay, so it's been around you for. I mean, I love it. Right, every voice matters.
Every
AT&T voice.
So we have a theme there, right? Because we also have Your Money Matters, which is the finance. Like we make sure that our employees understand how to save, how to invest in 401k, how to take tuition reimbursement. So that piece is called Your Money Matters. Okay. And then Your Health Matters is also focused. Oh, okay. And then your Every Voice Matters is our D&I focus, because we want to make sure employees understand that again, bring your authentic self to work.
Okay. All right.
All righty.
Don't hold back, because if you start deciding what part you're going to hold back, you might be holding back some innovative thinking, and we don't want that. Right. Okay.
Definitely.
Super. So hopefully that gives you some context to frame your questions. Let's now go to another organization you may have heard of, McDonald's. Joe, you're going to switch PowerPoints for us to Sharmila's PowerPoint? Thank you, Joe.
Wonderful.
So tell us again, remind us again, the specific role that you play, and this is your official role with regards to BRGs. Remind us, what is that role?
So the BRG role is I am on APMEN, which is our Asian Pacific Middle Eastern network. I'm on their advisory board. I'm also on the steering committee for our Global Women's Leadership Network. And so what we do, we call these employee business networks, and I'm going to show you in a few minutes, how many we have. But I wanted to start with our guiding principle, which is diversity is inclusion. And our chief diversity officer, we got a new chief diversity officer.
Wendy Lewis, right?
Wendy Lewis.
Yes. Who came from Major League Baseball.
She was there for 30 years, Major League Baseball. So, and we had Pat Harris with us for 40 years, and much of her time was as CDO, but then she kept wanting to retire. And finally, when we found Wendy, she did.
Yeah, she's a D&I icon out there. She's published a book on diversity.
Yes, yeah. So she's done a lot. So Wendy came in the fall of 2016 and really wanted to, as you start, come in as a CDO and you're starting to continue to advance and bring her background and her thinking to this, she really wanted us to think through this what I'm going to say, diversity is inclusion. And it's not diversity or inclusion or diversity and inclusion, but really diversity is inclusion, because you can hire people, you can have that representation, show those numbers, but if people aren't feeling a part of the organization, that is really not diversity. It's just lip service, right? So really, it's letting people bring their authentic self to work, and we've defined it as a seismic and bold value proposition where every individual feels their culture, identity, and experience are valued. And that's not just our employees, but it's also our owner-operators, it's our customers, it's the people we work with within all of our external partnerships, and it's our suppliers. You think about McDonald's has had the three-legged stool, that concept, for a long time, and that is that our employees, our suppliers, and our owner-operators need to work in concert together to reach the customer. And if any part of that stool is not feeling valued, or there's not harmony within that, the stool is not going to sit straight, and so then you have issues. And so it's really that three-legged stool concept that we have we're talking about.
Is that not advancing?
The green one.
That green
there we
one.
go.
Okay, this is super hard to read, but all I wanted to do is kind of tell you about it. You don't have to read it. But we at McDonald's, when I talk about the strategic alignment that we're working on within diversity and inclusion, it's all tied to our velocity growth that our CEO, Steve Easterbrook, has really tried to, to talk about, and we're really moving towards that velocity. I don't know if you all heard, but we moved our corporate headquarters from Oak Brook, Illinois, which was the suburbs, to downtown Chicago in the last month. And so now we've moved everybody down there, and the space is, so different than what we had in the suburbs. And the key is to just that collaboration, that open space, all of the new things that come with when you're looking at a new office. But it's really to move with speed. And so when we insert diversity is inclusion, and that mindset, just like you were talking about, Mohammed, it's really goes beyond what you see, right? And so we're incorporating a lot of other things, people's experiences, family status. Just all of this that you might not see when you look at someone. And we want people to think about that. And then, again, when I talk about our stakeholders, just make sure we're infusing it amongst all of those stakeholders and tying it into the culture pillars that we have, which are customer obsessed, which are better together and committed to lead. And you're going to see how our employee business networks kind of tie into that. But it's really to help shape all the business outcomes. Excuse me. So let me just step back into our infrastructure. We don't have as many as AT&T, but what we have is we manage all of these networks from our global group, which we call GDICE, the Global Diversity, Inclusion, Community Engagement Group. And recently, and this is actually only a few months old, we've inserted this national piece in there, and that's the U.S. Diversity Council. And we did that because we were being challenged, like most companies, to do more with less. And so what we had to do was figure out a way to move faster with less resources, and how could we really do, how could we do that? So we created a U.S. Diversity Council that takes the national leads from each of our 8 employee business networks and helps with collaboration so that we can create a bit bigger, better business impact. And so we still have regional chapters in our field offices. We still have MHQ as the McDonald's corporate headquarters. We still have the chapters there as well. But now there's sort of this governing body, which is the U.S. Diversity Council, which we feel is going to formalize the collaboration. Although, as you will see, as I talk through some examples, we've been doing that for a little bit. These are our networks. You can see I mentioned ATMEN, which is our Asian Pacific Middle Eastern network. Most of these are in the U.S. only. The one that is global right now is our Global Women's Leadership Network. And that's where we are really trying to make an impact with our global diversity, our global equality and diversity strategy. So, and I'll be talking to that in a minute as well. So when we look at how can we get our employees that are in these EBNs to make an impact, we look at 3 areas. We look at the business, we look at the employees, and we look at the community. We want to make sure that we are using our employee business networks in a strategic way. We want to make sure that they're bringing their full selves to work, that people are feeling valued and empowered and productive, so that we can continue that trajectory in terms of the velocity growth. And then we also want to make sure that we engage our employees in the communities that we serve and around our restaurants. When we look at the business, and I want to give you some examples, who has had an Egg McMuffin after 10:30 a.m.? Have you guys all? I mean, that was, our big issue. For years, we had talked about it. And the owner-operators, the senior leadership, and, there's this whole operational element that goes with it, which is really massive in terms of our supply chain and the kitchen space and, all of this. What helped sort of propel this forward was one of our employee business networks, which was our YPN, the Young Professionals Network. And they came in with all their viewpoints from millennials' viewpoints, which was, millennials want to eat breakfast all day long. They want, quick convenience.
Is that where that idea came from?
Seriously?
You know about that, right? Breakfast available all day? I didn't realize
that really helped our turnaround, too, because I joined McDonald's in the spring of 2015, and we were still in this turnaround. And we launched all-day breakfast in October of 2015. And so, but what happened is when we launched all-day breakfast, we got all of the networks on board to help deliver breakfast to schools, to radio stations, to corporations, all over in the middle of the day. So that was just, that's so cool. We were trying to make an impact. Now, this is, again, before we formalized with the U.S. Diversity Council, but we were working towards collaboration. So that's, one way where, one day, get everybody throughout the country, all networks, and help deliver this. Another thing is, when we had our last Employee Business Summit, which was in the fall of 2017, last year was sort of our pilot for our beyond bias. We call it, it's our unconscious bias thing, but we call it food for thought beyond bias. And we had already piloted this with our senior leadership team, but now it was time to pilot it with employees. And so we used this summit as a sort of a catalyst to get this out there. But we needed their engagement, we needed their ideas. And so we had brainstorming sessions with all of these employee business network leaders that came to Oak Brook, Illinois. And we really got them thinking and brainstorming and helping us, provide feedback on
how many employees came? How
about
large?
200.
About 200, okay.
Yeah. So we were able to, again, in a manageable way, do smaller breakout sessions and then get their thoughts after they saw the 2-hour workshop.
Good.
So that was very helpful. And then how could we apply it? That was the second thing, to what our growth accelerators are. When we talk growth accelerators, ours are right now the experience of the future, which is the restaurants, and we're putting kiosks in, we're putting table service, offering all that. That's part of that whole experience of the future for our customers. Our digital, because we're making advances in our global mobile app, in our mobile pay. How could we utilize all this as we're doing that? And I'll give you an example, because there's one more, which is the delivery, which is we've also launched the McDelivery. But, you think about kiosks, and you think about, at one time they were only credit card. So, a kid coming there with cash couldn't use the kiosk to pay. So, there's bias in everything, and so were we being biased in the fact that we wouldn't, you couldn't get people who had cash to pay. They had to go up to the counter. Or elderly people who are maybe, this is too techie for me. So those are the kinds of things we bring out when we talk about this workshop.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to have you, now do you have other context? Mm-hmm. Because with that second example that we're going to talk about, I'd like to come to that in just a moment, because I'd like Mohammed to also provide an example. So you want to finish your slides first? Yeah, I'll
go ahead, because I see the time and we're running low. But the second piece, because there's just two more, when we talk about the employee engagement and being better together, really we had, we know that millennials, and then looking down the gender equality, women, these cross all our networks, right? And so we hosted a millennial event that we as our diversity inclusion group put on, but we purposely had every single network be a part of it. And so they, every network volunteered a couple people, and we were able to put panels together that allowed us to really have this diversity of millennials, and when we talked about consumers and as employees. And it was all brought to us by one of our supplier partners that is Asian owned. Okay. So it's just this whole tie, but we really needed to look at it in that way. And the same with our gender diversity. We're tapping into all of our employee business networks, because that's, again, throughout. And then the last thing, when we talk about community, we look at the umbrella strategies around our Ronald McDonald House charities, obviously, and all of the networks and what they're doing, but they're all participating in their own ways in terms of preparing food or fundraisers. Ronald McDonald House Charities just recently celebrated their 40th anniversary, and so one of the networks, it was actually the Millennial Network, just hosted a 40 for 40, where they were, it was 40, they needed to raise money for 40 nights for, families. Mm-hmm. And so, just everybody's doing it under these umbrellas. And then the last thing is our Youth Employability Initiative. And that is actually being formally announced in July. But we have a global partner, and we're going to be working to help at-risk youth. Mm-hmm. And this is across all segments. We're working with our employee business networks to help in terms of mentoring, in terms of, bringing, youth in to see our building and what is possible and so forth. And so, again, we're using these umbrella programs to kind of help drive what we're doing.
Thank you, Sharmila. Wow. Have you been drinking from a fire hose? Do you recognize the common themes that are happening both at AT&T and McDonald's, where there are all these great community engagement programs, business programs, and the company is intentionally reaching out to members of their ERGs to implement these programs? Not in its entirety, but they are highly reliant on the members of these ERGs. So Mohammed, a very, very direct question. Give us an example of how AT&T BRGs work with each other and collaborate. Can you think of one that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I'll give the latest example of initiative that was launched last month.
Okay.
It's called DAWN, D-A-W-N, and it was launched by Organization of Asian Indians at AT&T in partnership with Pulse India and in partnership with Asian Pacific Women Organization. The focus is Asian women leadership development.
So that was the common theme that you all rallied around.
And so ERGs and employee networks, BRGs, so taking a very global approach, because they didn't want to limit it to just the U.S., because it's the issues are the same. When the leaderships of these ERGs and employee networks get together, they're like, yep, we're all facing the same issues. We don't see enough, first of all, women in certain roles, and then, definitely not a whole lot of Asian women, and because you see a lot of high-level positions,
especially heading up that
but it's the
corporate
middle
ladder.
Management where we see a lot of gap, which is the frozen middle, we call it,
the
right?
Frozen middle.
And then on top of that, right, there is the glass ceiling, and the Asian women have to also break a bamboo ceiling. So the two ceilings you're trying to break, right? So
that's the intersectionality that Bo was talking about this morning.
And so it was, again, going back to the point, very intentionally done, highly supported by our senior leadership. Not just in the U.S., but also in Hong Kong and other places. And we did a kickoff a few weeks back, and teams from India, leadership from Hong Kong, and leadership from different locations in the U.S. They were all on a telepresence, presentation, and the Dallas was the main kickoff place.
There was a live event.
Yeah, and it was
simulcasted.
Yeah, it was a webcast that went out to thousands of employees.
Wow!
And the purpose was to let employees know that here is what we're launching, and we're very intentionally focused on developing women leaders and heavily focused on Asian women leaders. And here are, and they kind of put together a whole curriculum around what we're going to do this year, what we're going to do next year, and what kind of skill sets we're going to focus on. And here are the leaders that are supporting this. And so it's still in a very early stage, but I thought that would be a great example to showcase how ERGs and employee networks, so think about it, right? It's employee engagement. And it's at the same time, this will directly impact business units.
Absolutely.
And the company, right? Because you're investing in the skill sets of employees. So, I'm just excited about this program because we do a lot of skills development here and there, but nothing really so heavily focused on Asian women leadership.
Yeah, that's a great example of synergy because we have to, and when I say we, I'm just talking about even just my conscious mind. We want to be the one that said that we did it. And then we perpetuate this silo mentality. Instead, you identify a sense of purpose that is important to your ERG, and then you go find another ERG that shares a common purpose, and then you say, can we all come together, pool our resources in our communities, and achieve so much more as a result of it? And that is an example of what happened there.
Fabian, another reason that, there's also a push from diversity and inclusion team for collaboration. And to encourage employee resource group and employee network, they've also created an award for collaboration. So when we host the ERG conference,
that's a great idea.
Which is like our Oscars. That's what we call it, because Around 2,000 plus employees are at this event in Dallas.
Okay.
This will be our 10th ERG conference this year.
Yeah.
And almost every senior vice president, all the way from Randall, our CEO, to all the business leaders, everyone is present there. The award is given out by our CEO to the top 3 ERGs, national level, and top 3 local level ERGs. And the ERGs compete. And that's when D&I realized that, okay, we're making it very, a lot of competition going on, but at the same time, we don't see collaboration, to your point, because people are like, we did this.
Yeah.
How do we showcase that we did this? Because if I engage Fabian, if I engage, Sharmila, then it's not mine. And that was the mindset a lot of ERG leaders had, especially at the local chapter levels.
Yeah.
Because there was so much competition, right? Because look at it, we have 24 ERGs, and imagine the hundreds of chapters in every city. Yeah. So
it's helping to shift mindset.
Yeah.
And strategically, if you think about it, by them awarding, making a competition, celebrating the collaboration, it actually helps to shift the cultural mindset of the organization, where we now use the collaboration currency to now run the business. It really helps to shift people's mindsets about that.
The WIFM.
Yeah.
What's in it for me?
It really is. Sharmila, an example on the McDonald side where there have been cross collaborations between different ERGs.
So I gave many for the U.S., but I'm going to talk a global one.
Okay.
Because that's our Global Women Leadership Network, and that's where we're getting all of the different leaders from our different countries, because most of our countries have a chapter of the Women's Leadership Network. And we are really trying to develop this global gender diversity strategy. That's hot right now at McDonald's. And so we are getting perspectives and advice and so forth from, and we're in the process right now of doing that, but from the world, because that's important to us. And we do have regular calls. In fact, we just had one Tuesday morning globally. Mm-hmm. So, we do that so we can report on what's happening and how we can continue to pool our efforts.
Okay.
But that's really our global example.
Give us a few examples of the kinds of programs that this global network for women do. Is it in the form of training or a workshop or?
So part of it, it's learning from each other and doing some best practices.
Okay.
It's not necessarily, because what we are also finding is that diversity is so local, and every country's needs are so different.
Okay.
And
so they're all doing their
all
local
doing different
programs.
things.
Okay.
But one of the things that we did, and I don't know if you saw the news, but on International Women's Day in March, on March 8th, we turned our McDonald's signs upside down.
That was
to
or
a
to be a W for women.
Yeah, you saw that?
Yeah, I saw that.
So we did that in many countries. So that was a coordinated effort.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But so we're working on doing more. But that was just one piece of where we could coordinate and do that together.
How creative. I love that.